Well, welcome to this Cabinet meeting today at Newcastle Borough Council. Welcome to Cabinet members who are in the room with me here, Councillor Trevor Johnson and Councillor Stephen Sweeney. We've got joining us online Cabinet member Helena Maxfield and Paul Northcott, and we're hoping to have Jill Waring, Councillor Jill Waring, join us in a minute. She's had some technical difficulties. Also welcome to our officers in the room and also joining us online, and also those that are joining us on YouTube. The agenda is on the Council's website if anybody wants to follow that by going to the Council's website and then to the agenda section to look at that. Okay, we'll start the meeting then. Apologies, I don't have any because Jill will be joining us. Item 2, any declarations of interest for items on the agenda from anybody? I don't have any. Okay, so minutes of the last meeting, our meeting on the 11th of November, attached on page 5 to 10. Can we agree those as the correct record?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, first item of business for us today is a coronavirus update. This takes the same format as the previous updates we've had to Cabinet as we've been going through the coronavirus crisis since March. This latest report is obviously just a week or so after we came out of the second lockdown, which the borough then went into tier 3, where it had been in tier 2 before the lockdown. So questions there whether what the lockdown did achieve there from a layman's point of view. But as we are at the moment, it says in the report at time of writing, which was yesterday, 231 cases per 100,000. I believe that figure has now dropped on the latest to below 200, so going in the right direction in the borough and across the county. Of course, that will be reviewed, the tier system will be reviewed on the 16th of December. I, as leader of the council, wrote a joint letter with other Staffordshire leaders and the leader of the county council asking the government to consider obviously carefully what they do on the ahead of the 16th of December, given the fact that hospitality, bars and restaurants are closed completely under tier 3, other than for obviously deliveries and meals, etc., taken out. That they are suffering really badly, and the borough, particularly the town centre in the borough, has got a lot of nightlife, nighttime economy, which is suffering badly. And so that was a plea to the government to have a look at that and try and help the hospitality industry before Christmas. And if not, I think the government should be looking at a grant scheme again of the significance of what happened in the spring for the hospitality industry. And we as a Borough Council stand ready to give that money out to those businesses as soon as the government will give us any of that money to do that. So I think that's a point I wanted to make. The report before us today, as an update, has got the usual sections: support for business, attracting footfall, support for vulnerable people, council services, the recovery, economic recovery, and then also the financial recovery. I'm going to start with the support for business and hand over to Stephen, our portfolio for finance and efficiency, and deputy leader, who's going to give us an update on our support for business.
Yeah, thank you, leader. I've not got a huge amount to add apart from what's written on here. We talk about the total sum over the page. But what I will say, and I'll say it every time, and I'll say it again, is that the government has listened to what people have said and has come up with money to support our businesses. This latest tranche is for the last month of the lockdown. So it's businesses, for example, that are made to shut. And it's all for businesses that, although they're not made to shut, they're losing a load of money because there's footfall's gone and that sort of thing. But the actual figures are on the sheet, and it's fairly self-explanatory. And the grand total I'll talk about when we come later on on this particular section, if we can.
Okay. Any other comments on support for business? I don't see any. I think just to add to what you said, Steve, on that, significant support coming in for business. But I think when you look at, as I said earlier, the hospitality industry, the amounts which they are being given per month is pitiful, really, which is in the run up to Christmas, which is the busiest time for most businesses, but particularly for hospitality, bars and restaurants. They need to have a significant bailout. And I hope the government are listening really to this, and hope they listen to the letter that was sent by all the leaders from across Staffordshire and the County Council on that. We'll move to the next section, which is attracting footfall, particularly relating to our town centre. Steve, again, your portfolio, particularly town centre. Any comments?
I'd recommend anybody to go to these markets. The artisan market that we had a while ago was tremendous. They're out in the open. They're fully COVID compliant. They'll be stewarded all over the place. All the stall holders be wearing masks, and it's a good event. And I would well recommend anybody to go to it. It's a sort of event that I think I heard somebody say when they walked away from it. Oh, that's the sort of thing they should have in Newcastle. Oh, we are in Newcastle, and it's that good an event. So I absolutely recommend it to anybody. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And I think, the town centre since the end of the second lockdown has been very busy, which I think is good. And the social distancing has been good as well. And I think it's really good to see I'm looking out of the window now in Castle House here, and it's busy in the Queen's Gardens here. People sitting safely distanced out in the open, talking, and got bubbly hats on and probably a flask of soup to keep them warm. But other than that, it's good to see. And I think this artisan market on Sunday and the follow-on markets that we're planning are really going to be well received, and hopefully will bring people into the town. Of course, with it being Sunday, Steve, you neglected to say it is free parking on council car parks. That's the point we have to say, not on every street with double yellow lines, for example. But I think we are doing every effort we can to help the town, and hopefully people will come in, enjoy a safe experience of the markets, and any time between now and Christmas, because our shops really need that local trade. Anybody else want to say anything about the town centre and attracting footfall? Yep, sorry, Steve, come in. And then Paul.
Yeah, one thing I forgot, of course, is it's Wednesday night, so it's late night shopping tonight. So the parking's free after 5. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, just endorsing the Deputy Leader's comments there, and adding a few of my own. As we negotiate and navigate through this difficult period, it's important that we are supporting our local businesses to see them over this difficult patch. It'll remain to see how successful we are doing, but so far we have made a difference in terms of the local businesses. The feedback I'm getting is that they've welcomed the assistance that we've managed to get out to them in the different phases and tranches of the funding. And this latest one will just hopefully continue this message that we are there to help. Obviously, we're working in partnership with the County Council as well, and our business partners to improve the situation in Newcastle and Town Centre, and also Kidsgrove Town Centre, don't forget. We need to make sure that we do our utmost in order to keep the town open for business and balance this fragile need and requirement to keep people safe, but to keep businesses ticking over and making a living at the same time. This is vital if it'll affect the viability of these businesses going forward. So this is welcomed 100%, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else want to say anything about the town centre footfall? Okay, we'll move on. Supporting vulnerable people. I'll bring in Helena Maxfield, who's the portfolio holder for this area, now to give some updates on this part of the council's work. Helena.
Thank you, Leader. And again, I don't really have a lot more to add than what's already written there. However, what I will say is from a rough sleepers and homeless sort of numbers that we've got, we're currently down on numbers than what we have been as of last week and the week before. There's improvements come about from some positive engagement from our homelessness team, and that's helped with the reduction of the figures. It's also helped our most vulnerable people into some supported accommodation as well, which is a positive thing, especially with the weather getting colder in the way that it is at the moment. I want to, if I can, Leader, at this point in time, just to reinforce that should anybody, because we have had a few emails over the last sort of month or so where members of the public have spotted somebody who they think might be a rough sleeper but not quite sure what to do. So if I could just use at this point in time to just sort of reinforce that if anybody does see anybody who they think might be sleeping rough or is homeless, then the Rough Sleeper team number is 0800 970 2304. Of course, it might be a good time to put that with the weather getting colder. As far as our revenue and benefits team, as we've already said on there, it's processing the applications for payments to individuals who've been required to self-isolate, pandemic situation that we find ourselves in, and we've still got our ongoing support that has been delivered from the Realise Foundation has stepped up to receive calls. And further news is that our Rough Sleeper teams are actually going out and doing a sweep on every Thursday morning as well. And obviously, if the temperature falls below 0 for any given time, we have sufficient enough temporary accommodation in place for those persons wanting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Helena, for that update. I think, yes, that number for the rough sleepers is really important. I think we do promote that on our website, and it's something we should continue to do on social media, so that people, if they do see anybody in distress, not only in the town centre but in other areas, we have cases of this as well, where we need to get some help to those people and options for them to get into a warm place, and obviously then on to permanent accommodation as well. Thank you for that, Helena. Any other comments on support for vulnerable people? No, I don't see any. Right, council services. Over to Trevor first for your frontline services that you cover. Any sort of updates, or is all going okay?
Thank you, Leader. Sorry about that. Yes, everything is going according to plan. I think we have one person shielding. That's if I'm right on. I can ask you, Dave, if I'm right on that. It's just one person down, I think. Yeah. And no, everything is going swimmingly, as you put it, Leader.
That's really encouraging. As we've come out of lockdown, and we've managed to keep services such as your waste management, recycling, and refuge, and also the street scene and keeping the streets clean, which is really good. Jill Waring is still looking to get into the meeting. She's got technical difficulties, but she would be saying here that obviously J2 was closed during lockdown, but is now open again, and we hope to have some provision of swimming, etc., before Christmas, and then we're having some more work done to carry out some sustained repairs to the pool, so it'll be open again in the new year. I think the museum, we had hoped to open that following lockdown for the pre-Christmas festivities there in a safe way, but because of Tier 3, that hasn't allowed us to do that, unfortunately. So the museum now, as we see later on the agenda, will be having some work done to it in the new year, which hopefully Jill will be here to introduce when we do get her into the meeting. I think really the council and all the staff working very hard through lockdown too, and since then, and I think hats off to those, particularly on the front line, who are out in the colder weather as well, keeping the borough going and keeping services for local residents, which has been well received by everybody. I know from the people that contact me with thanks. Many grumbles, of course, there always is. Hi, Jill. Welcome. If you could put your camera off for the moment, Jill, and then I've done your bit on J2, by the way. We've just done that. But, okay. She's coming after that. And I think what we are doing is ensuring that the residents of the borough, through the things that we're doing, we are looking after them. We are giving them the services they require, and particularly through customer services, with the continue available of online when face-to-face is out of commission here at Castle House. So I'll open it up now to any other views on council services. Steve, do you want to add anything?
No, I'd just like to congratulate our staff for working through these times. I think people go outside clapping the NHS a few months ago. I think they should clap our binmen as well. I know other people who worked. I'd clap anybody. People who work in supermarkets aren't clapping, in my opinion. But no, I think our people have really stood up to the mark and have done really, really well with this. Thank you.
I've got Paul and then Trevor. Paul.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I welcome the good work that's been done by the officers. And of course, I'm not going to miss a plug for my portfolio in terms of the planning services team that have been continue to be exceptional. I'm pleased to report that they've been able to maintain reasonable exceeding levels of expectation. The attendance rate has also been very good, and it's combined to provide services that have been virtually fault-free throughout the whole of COVID and continue to do so. So I'm really pleased, and thank you to all the council workers, particularly those in my portfolio. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Trevor?
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of points. Our residual waste has fallen quite considerably over this last 6 weeks, and our recycling has gone up. And I think we've got about a 2.5% rejection or contaminated, and that is all. And those are fantastic figures, and I really take my hat off to them.
Thank you for that, Trevor. I think also I'm not going to say what's going to happen now, but those people who will know there's a full council here next week at Newcastle on Wednesday. The leader's statement will be published on Friday, which will contain some information of how we're going to, I don't know what the word is, honour our staff for the hard work they've done over the last 8 months or so, and in anticipation of the work in the new year as well. But we will have more of that then. Okay, looking at economic recovery next. Obviously, we're still waiting on the Future High Streets Fund bid news. We hope to hear that imminently, but we have a plan there for massive regeneration within the town centre, and to make a start on that possibly in the new year if we get the information from the government that the bid has been successful. The Kidsgrove Town deal is, of course, in, and we're waiting for the government's view on that. The Newcastle Town deal is progressing quickly now and is being solidified around some really good measures for improving the town as a whole. And of course, we've got the advance monies, which came as part of the town deal, and we're busy on projects at the moment to deliver that money by next April, helping the economic recovery across the borough. But I will say again, obviously, the economy is not just the borough council or council, it's actually the businesses out there. And I think it's great to see retail open again, but it's the hospitality and the pubs and bars, which are so well loved and successful across the borough, that are really suffering at the moment through not being able to open. Steve, anything else on economic recovery?
I'll just repeat what you said, really. Part of the manifesto when we won the election was a levelling up sort of north-south divide, and this sort of money is just proof that the government meant what it said. It's a fantastic opportunity for Newcastle and Kidsgrove. The sums of money we've won, tens of millions of pounds to come in the area if they're successful, is a really once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for this borough, and I think we need to grasp it with both hands. Thank you.
Hey, Stephen, anything else on economic recovery at this stage? No? Okay. The last section is financial recovery. And of course, Steve, you've got your budget bit next. So don't talk about that too much at this stage. But on the economic recovery, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you. There's two real things. I'll repeat again what I said about the government has done what they said they were going to do. And thanks to the LGA, thanks to ourselves, thanks to the officers here, thanks to the members of Parliament for taking our call. We're not, we needed this money. We've lost a lot of money, and the money's come. And they've actually promised us £4,599,671. We've actually received at the moment £3,278,000, 173, and that's real money that we've had, and that is that was needed, and we've had it, and well done the government for doing what they said they were going to do. The second thing we've had is obviously businesses, and we've had £30 million to passport out to businesses, and some of those schemes are still going. But that, again, that's £30 million to support our local businesses. The one we're waiting for, I think there's a call to the department this afternoon. There's a conference call discussing, we may have heard the Prime Minister talk about support for the licence industry for pubs, wet pubs as opposed to dry pubs, which is strange. Now, when we're in tier 3, which we're in at the moment, it don't really make, because all the pubs are shut anyway. But if we were to go down to tier 2, all of a sudden pubs are able to open if they sell food, but if they don't sell food, what do they live off? And that's what this money's for. But that's been decided this afternoon. There's a big conference call. We'll get more details, because all we know really is what the Prime Minister said at PMQs, I think, last week. But there's a whole scheme got to be worked out there. But that's the sort of support we're looking at. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments on the economic recovery side of this? Not the economic recovery, financial recovery side of this report. I think just to echo what you said there, Steve, about the the government's help to make up for the losses that the council has had through lack of income from car parking, J2 being closed, and all of the other things, and also the extra money that's been given for us to then provide services to the government have asked us to do more on the homelessness and all of that, and then that massive amount of money, 30 million, as you say, for all types of businesses across the borough, which we've passported quickly throughout this period to businesses, and are still doing through the schemes that are open. Again, on our website are details of those schemes that are still open and open to applications from any businesses that qualify, and encourage any business that hasn't already looked at those to do so, to get that grant from the government, which is yours by right if you apply for it and meet the criteria. Okay, that's our coronavirus update report for this December meeting. Recommendation is, as we look at the report and discuss it, etc. We've done that. Shall we move on to the next item? All agreed? Okay. The next item. Thank you, Paul. The next item on the agenda is the 2021-2022 draft savings proposals. Hand over to Steve to introduce this.
Okay. Thank you, Leader. Before I say anything, really, I'd like to say that the audit's been completed by Grant Thornton. It's been signed off with an unqualified audit opinion on the accounts and value for money. Now, these are the two big things that we want auditors to do. And I think the fact that they've both come as, a clean bit of health is a great credit to our officers who worked in very trying times, working from home and all the rest of it. I think it's I'd just like to thank them really for all the work and effort they've done to get these tremendously successful set of accounts produced. That's the first thing. You might remember on the 11th of November, the last cabinet meeting, we talked about a budget gap of £1.790 million. The meeting, what I'm going to talk about now is how we're going to get rid of that gap. Since then, we've had a comprehensive spending review, which has reduced the gap to £1.280 million. Quite a substantial reduction. The two sort of highlight bits are obviously the pay freeze, which we've heard about. However, we've got 169 employees who earn £24,000 or less. So they get £250 pay award, which costs £42,000 to the council. However, the MTFS, the medium-term financial strategy, had built a pay award of 2.75%. So you juggle the figures around, that gives us £377,000 extra. That plus we didn't expect the government to continue paying for our losses on car parking and other things, other income streams we've got over to next year. Well, they are doing for the first quarter of next year. We weren't expecting this. So for every, we lose basically 25%, the government will bail us out for 75%. We weren't expecting this. This is extra money that we're very thankful of. And that brings the gap down to £1.280 million. Now, there's another £5,000 gone by a bit of financial disruptions for the capital programme. So that takes us down to £1.275 million. However, all councils know that if you stand still, you go backwards. That's the reality. And this council's aware of this. And we've commissioned a full review of the council services and how these services are provided. The pandemic has changed the goalposts in terms of creating more demands on council services. In order to provide these efficiently and effectively, a one council programme will take place, looking at work streams, including digital delivery, programme management, maximising efficiency, and areas around customer focus. This is estimated now to save us, after 3 years, £922,000 a year, every year, forever. That's the sort of figures we're looking at. And if we don't do things like this, there's going to be less money come from central government. We've got to lead rather than follow. And that's the decision this council made. We've had financial recovery broad process, challenge sessions involving each of the portfolios, including cabinet members, EMT and heads of service. A number of savings and funding strategies have been identified as being both feasible and sustainable, resulting in a balanced budget for 21-22. Nobody knows who our financial director, and she would not authorise these. She would not agree to these if she didn't believe in those two words, the fact they were feasible and sustainable. It wouldn't have gone through. The actual things we're talking about are on the back on page 21. 1.275 million. They're all listed there. No council services will be reduced, will be affected, if you like. The idea is that, for example, say taxis. I know a bit about taxis in my portfolio. Taxi drivers come, they talk to our officers, 2 or 3 times, whatever. There's absolutely no reason on this earth why they need to do that. They need to come in once so they can say, yes, I am Joe Smith, this is me. We need to say them again. We don't need to see them 2 or 3 times. We can have the infrastructure in to stop that. Bins. I'm not very good on technology and digital stuff. I'm a bit of a philistine, really, bit old hat. But I can sign on to our garden waste, and it'll take me about 2 minutes from beginning to end to do that. The amount of money that saves, and this is just 2 examples. There's loads of other things. You phone up the council. The first person you speak to deals with what you want. They don't have to passport you to someone else, so they can deal with the problem there. So obviously there's more training involved, there's more digital things, there's a big cost involved, but the long-term thing is £922,000 a year saved that helps make this council sustainable. And without us doing actions like this, well, presumably all councils are doing, I don't know if they are or not, I don't work for other councils, but this council is leading the way it's got to do. The saving things are here. I don't particularly want to go into them all. They're all fairly self-explanatory. If anyone has any questions, I can answer them. But I'm absolutely, I commend this. I commend the officers as well for the work they've done on this to make this such a good experience, really. And this page of savings isn't normally 1 page, is it? It's at least 2 pages, but it's only 1 page. But on the second side of that, there is the capital programme. And the capital programme, as you can see, has got a big thing on service area leisure of 5,671,000. That is the money for Kids Grove. Kids Grove Sports Centre, yeah. And the other big item you'll see on year 2 is for street scene improvement services, which will be for the expanding the crematorium. But no, I absolutely commend this, and I'll take any questions for anybody. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And I echo your thanks to our finance team, and I'd say thanks to yourself and also cabinet members for the input through the recovery board process, which has been thorough this year. And with the backdrop of COVID, it's shed a new light on the way we run the council, and that's why we've looked at it really down to the building blocks and looked how we can build back better. I hate that phrase, but that's what we are actually doing here, as well as getting back on track. And it's I think we see the results there. I think the one council approach, it is an extension of that digital delivery we've been talking about the last few years, but taking that even further. And that's why we in the recommendations, we're investing some money in that. It's investing money to save over the time of the MTFS. And I think, I endorse these proposals. And obviously they will go to the scrutiny committee, FAP scrutiny committee on Monday for all members on there to have a look at as well. And then they will come back to us in January when we then finesse the budget for the recommendations that will go to council at the end of February. But I will open it up now to any comments or even questions to Steve on these spending proposals. Looking on the screen from our members. Don't have any. Trevor? No? Okay. So recommendations before us, Steve, in this, which still an early stage of the budget setting process. There's still a long way to go at the moment. But the recommendations before us, that we note the proposals on Appendix 1 and 2, which Steve has talked about. We also note the amendment to the MTFS for the change in the news of the public sector freeze assumptions. And then obviously we refer this draft to the Finance Assets and Performance, FAPS, Scrutiny Committee for their view. And then lastly, as I said, that revenue estimate supplementary of 250k for the mobilisation phase of the one council approach. So with our own recommendations, can we all agree them?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 6 now is the North Staffordshire Local Air Quality Plan Outline Business Case. And Trevor's going to introduce this item. Over to you, Trevor.
Thank you, Leader. The Air Quality Report sets out to tackle air quality problems linked to road traffic and nitrogen dioxide emissions. Around 2 years ago, the Borough, Stoke-on-Trent and the County Council as the Highway Authority were issued with a legally binding directive to investigate locations where nitrogen dioxide concentrations were likely to exceed statutory limits and to come up with a plan to reduce pollution in the shortest possible time. Our team, headed by Nesta Barker, have worked incredibly hard against the clock, seeking a solution. In the Borough, we have identified one location where nitrogen dioxide will exceed the statutory limit, and this is on the A53 Etruria at the top of Basford Bank. Since the A53 is a main route from Newcastle to Hanley and vice versa, we have worked together to appraise the problem and identify a solution to bring down pollution levels as soon as possible. The report sets out the work done and describes proposals known as the preferred option. This report has been before scrutiny and was approved unanimously. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Trevor, and thank you for your work on this. I know it's been difficult at times as we've got through this process. Of course, this is a three-council approach. We're not just here on our own doing this. It's Stoke City Council and Staffordshire County Council. Particularly like to thank the County Council for the support that they've given. And obviously, as we take this forward now, these are highway implications, which they will be for them to take forward. Just we've had this at Cabinet a number of times, and we've had a real thrash about this, thrash around on the issues. And of course, this option before us isn't an option which we should really be welcoming, I think, but it's one that we've got to put through, because the alternative would be a chargeable clean air zone covering most of the eastern side of Newcastle and a lot of the city council area, which I believe would be a disaster for businesses charging people to come into our town centre, for example. These options before us are the least really which is required to amend the issue which is before us, which is the air quality on for us on a small part of Basford Bank, just above just by the lights, isn't it, as you come up the bank, and it involves obviously the virtual buzz gate, not a physical gate, but it would mean cars that went through there would be fined in between the busy rush hour hours, which is something which I'm sure wouldn't be welcomed by a lot of people. There's a couple of things I'd like to just ask that we include in the recommendations, which I support as where we are at the moment, and I think there's a lot more to be done before this actually becomes a reality. I'd like to ask that we ask officers and our colleagues in the city and in the county to consider the fact of the eco cars at the moment. At a later stage, it says in the documents that they will be allowed to, which obviously they don't pollute, electric cars, etc. At the moment, cannot be allowed through the gate, obviously without getting fined. And I think I'd like to see that happen right at the beginning, that they're allowed through, rather than at a later stage. I think technology exists to do that, and I think that would be a signal that this isn't just an attempt at caning everybody and making a bit of money out of fines when it's not. It's to reduce the problem, and the problem is those polluting cars. So I would like to add as a recommendation that we ask for that to be progressed as part of these proposals as soon as these are, if they're implemented, that the eco cars, electric car solution for them to be allowed through the gates is taken right at the beginning of these proposals. And then lastly, I want to add that we write as a cabinet to our local MP, Aaron Ball, and ask him to take up the case of government to make the case that this is unnecessary, given the situation that we are in a COVID slump at the moment. And as we know, there's not that much traffic on the road than there was. There are changes that are taking place structurally that were out of our control, and that I believe we need to look at this again and the government has to do that. I think we do our job today, and we do our job, and we go with these recommendations with the added one relating to those eco cars being allowed through the gate from the start. But we also write to our MP to ask him to take up the case with his fellow MPs from the city and from Kids Grove, Stoke North, Jonathan, to try and get the government to see sense on this, that even this is I believe a step too far and a hammer to crack a nut. But I think a lot of work's gone into these proposals, and that's why we should agree them today. A to F, with the added recommendation after about the eco cars, and then the other recommendation about writing to our local MP. I'll open it up now for any comments or views. Steve, in the room, and then...
Yeah, thank you, Leah. Yeah, I agree entirely with what you just said. The worst possible thing we could have is one of these wretched chargeable air zones. And this gets away from that. You know, we've got no choice. We've got to do something. And I think this is the least worst option by quite a long way. What I do find frustrating is that this options, I don't think 1 gram of nitrogen dioxide will be saved on these options. It'll just be moved to different roads, which I think is just the flaw in the argument personally. But we've got no choice but to do it. And I think we've got the best option we could have put forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from cabinet members that are zooming in today? I don't see any hands at all. No. Anything further from you, Trevor? No. Okay. So what we're doing today is recommending that we move ahead, obviously with those recommendations to get to the next phase, but with those 2 extra recommendations from cabinet here to ask for those eco cars to be given a pass through the gates from the beginning, and that we write to our MP asking him to take the case with the government to fight the case. This isn't something which even these proposals are a hammer to crack a nut as far as we're concerned. So with those recommendations, do we all agree?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Next one, item 7, is local plan update, and I'm bringing Paul Northcott here, the portfolio holder, to introduce this.
Thank you, Leader. The Cabinet members will be aware that there hasn't been an update on the joint local plan for some while now, since the beginning of the year. Hence, partly bringing this report today. The purpose of the report is obviously to update the Cabinet with the local plan and the options that are following the economic changes nationally and locally, the social impact of COVID-19, especially this year with the emerging post-Brexit fallout, or shall I say opportunities for the forthcoming future. It's important that we take a step back now while we have the chance to look at this. And by means of this, we're bringing this report to you today. And I'd like to draw members' attention to the proposal of the report outlined in 4.1. There's two sentences there that outline this proposal. A little bit of background. The government requires, obviously, that local authorities have in place a local plan, and this local plan governs the controlled development within its sphere. In our case, it would be the joint local plan for this borough and Stoke-on-Trent City Council, and also the necessity to provide a joint advisory group also came along with that, and has had meetings as and when it's been required. Now, joint work has progressed from the 2 councils. This journey has been long since it was first agreed to do a joint local plan back in 2014. The idea and intention then was that the local plan will be in place by around mid-2018. This hasn't happened for various reasons. And this is a golden opportunity now for us to take a step back before we consider the last hurdles of the joint local plan, to see whether it's appropriate for Newcastle, bearing in mind the 2 major things that have had an impact on our area. As the country also responds to both COVID and Brexit, we'll need to do that as well. This will need to be reflected quite appropriately locally. We're mindful that the 2 authorities will have many similarities that have been drawn and share common housing and economic subgroup areas. But the authorities are also different in a number of aspects, particularly in regard the rural and urban characteristics that make up each. So what may be appropriate for one may not be appropriate for the others. and this will this report and hopefully your approval, cabinet members, will give the chance for us to look at that in a little bit more detail and consider our options moving forward. Now, another important part that we'll have to take on board if we're considering the possibility of going as a lone borough to reflect the needs of our residents and businesses and the development world appropriate to our borough. We'll also have to engage with partners and stakeholders to gauge a temperature in terms of the borough local plan and resetting the local plan process, which we'll have to do. That this can't be escaped if we decide to go it alone. We have to reset, but the work that we've done so far won't be all in vain. A lot of the work will be still applicable. The reports and information will be still valid. Obviously, there'll be some that needs to be refreshed and updated, but all that work will not go to waste. It'll be you know, stand us in good stead when we bring this forward. But we'll need to engage with partners through the borough residents, obviously, to get a feeling, and also the development industry, and also our neighbouring authorities such as Cheshire East and Staffordshire County Council, Stoke City County Council, of course, City Council. And we also need to liaise with the LEP, of course, and MHCLG, the government, local government planning advisory group as well, to see where we are and whether it is feasible and whether we can recognise that there is a need there for the borough to go its own way. In view of the changed economic position that we find ourselves in today. Now, I'd be telling a fib if there wasn't some risk with this. You know, it's if we stop the local plan process to look at our own local plan rather than a joint local plan, there are risks that are outlined in the report that I won't need to go through every single one of them. But if we don't adhere to the structure that we have in place for a joint local plan, then we leave ourselves risks in terms of appeal challenges. We do believe, having talked with the officers, that we've got good grounds for a deliverable plan. It is thought that we would be ready by the much publicised government dateline of 2023. We feel that the work that we've done so far will give us a real boost when we reset the mark, if we decide to reset the mark, of course, following consultation and approval at subsequent cabinets. And we obviously need to progress this forward. So I'll leave this report in your capable hands, cabinet members, and only too pleased to try and answer some of the questions if you've got any questions, or invite comment on the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, for introducing that. And I think I support all of everything what you've said about the need for this review. And I think if you just look at 2.2 to see the dates associated with the key stages of the joint local plan, 2016, 2017, 2018, for key stages when we've consulted with the public. Now is the last one, 2018, February, soon to be 3 years ago. I don't think we can really seriously consider that to be up to date, and right back to 2016. First conceived, of course, back in end of 2013 that we would have a joint local plan. I mean, it's very frustrating, I think, for all councillors to be in the situation we've been in with the joint local plan. I think what we've got here is a report which shows us a different way of doing it. I think it talks about the idea of a borough local plan that stands alone, and some of the advantages and obviously the timescales that would need to be met to achieve that. I mean, also the actual, which you didn't mention, Paul, is the white paper, of course, which the government are at the moment, looking to change planning laws. So I feel if we were to still press ahead with the joint local plan, delayed as I believe it would be again because of coronavirus, because we couldn't go out to consultation as we would need to, not at least till next summer, would be even more out of date when the government changed the deck chairs around on the planning ship, if you know what I mean. So I think what we're looking at is there is no option of taking a joint local plan and everything's milk and honey. I think it's still a lot of problems with that. And that's why I feel at this stage, as this report says, as a time to pause, ask for some advice, and to consult with those people, as you've said, Paul, and then bring something back in January so that if we do decide to go ahead with our own borough plan, we can get on with it. And the borough then will be the centre of our thinking for a local plan, instead of, being attached to a large city which has got different ambitions and different growth targets than a borough. And I would just say Staffordshire Moorlands, which is the other side of the conurbation from us and the rural area out to the peaks there, has its own local plan and has had one in place now for a few months now. They cracked on and got their local plan on their own. And I don't see why us as a borough can't get on and do that if that's the decision we make. So the proposals which are in under 4.1, I think what we need to say is that Cabinet obviously has taken into account the report, wishes to look at the option of a borough local plan, and that we, to educate a decision in January, we commission further advice on the impact of COVID and Brexit on the local economy and the local planning process, and engage with stakeholders to identify in the report in January and what is in the report here, a better understanding of their position regarding a borough local plan. So I'll open it up now to any other comments. Steve?
Yeah, without reiterating everything you said, I think it's summed up on 1.2. In March 2014, the then administration took a decision to prepare a joint local plan with Stoke-on-Trent City Council. The timescale envisaged at that time anticipated JLP being in place mid-2018, and it's December 2020, and we haven't got a local plan. When do you say this is just going on forever and ever and ever? When do we make the decision to call it quits and do our own? I think it's the right way to go. Personally, I think we carry on with this, just going on and on and on, and nothing ever gets achieved. Complete waste of time. Thank you.
Trevor?
Thank you, Leader. I just believe that we need to be the masters of our own destiny. It's as simple as that. Thank you, Leader.
Any other comments from either Helena or Jill on this before I bring Paul back in? Jill?
Thank you, Leader. I would just like to say, if the current process isn't working, we'd be better to cut our losses and progress a plan in which we've got complete control over. I think it's also important that we maintain a good relationship with Stoke-on-Trent, because we still need to engage with them in order to progress our own plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. And Paul?
Thanks, Leader. Yes, I should also point out that that this will give us a chance to look at, again, naval development plans. The government has recently announced that it will be making sure that naval development plans are the forefront of planning local joint local plans or local plans, and they should figure very highly in this, and the particularly urban naval development plans, which obviously will include Kidsgrove and their emerging naval development plan. This will be an ideal opportunity to shape that landscape that's been so lacking in the past and is needed now. So this will give you an opportunity for Kidsgrove to get really on board with this as well, in terms of planning their future development needs throughout that district there. And also to say that in reaching this proposal, we obviously will need to make sure that we're mindful of our partners Stoke-on-Trent, and I believe we have had some initial discussions in terms of setting out the scene, and I believe that they've also got some concerns about the needs of the two authorities being different, and the need obviously to explore that. So I'll leave that report in your hands and hope that you go with the proposal and recommendations outlined in this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I just think on that neighbourhood plan point is well made, Paul, because we all know when we have train as planning members that the neighbourhood plans are the basis for your local plan, whereas what we're about to engage in is the finalisation of a joint local plan when, for example, Kidsgrove doesn't have a neighbourhood plan. The other neighbourhood plans we've got have come on stream in the last 18 months or so and are not reflected in the basis for our joint local plan at the moment. So there's a chance to, with this reset, to actually get that the building block in place of the neighbourhood plans, which will be, the community views first, won't it, as the building block for our local plan. So I think that's a really important point to make and really a key to the proposals. But I think we've got the recommendations there that we asked for more research done on this to educate our decision and also engage with our stakeholders. Do we all agree those?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Back to the front of the agenda, page 8, item 8 even, Sustainable Environment Strategy. Trevor.
Thank you, Leader. Right, over the last 2 years, the country has been focused on the sustainability agenda and the environmental threats caused by rising carbon emissions, plastic pollution, poor use of dwindling natural resources and habitat loss. The UK, together with the governments around the world, are responding to those threats and have declared a climate emergency, pursuing environmental strategies to accelerate actions to achieve carbon neutrality. In April 2019, the Borough Council passed a climate emergency motion. A central element of this was to aim for carbon neutrality with respect to the Council's own estates and activities, including those related to our residents and to businesses. This administration is committed to establishing a sustainable environmental strategy, and we are now working in partnership across the Borough to tackle the environmental issues facing our communities and businesses, and in particular with key partners such as Keele University and Staffordshire County Council. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Trevor. Really, really pleased to see this. And I think what we must do after this is get this strategy up on our website with a page dedicated to the sustainable environment strategy. And I think something you'd agree, Trevor, with, of course, is that this isn't the finished product. This is just the start of a process of an ongoing environment strategy for the borough. And I think you're quite right when you say we're working with partners already. Keele University are one of our key partners working on this, along with the county, and it will be a key part of our refresh of the county deal that we have with our colleagues at the county council. And I think it's something that scrutiny have taken a look at as well, isn't it? And taken a look at particularly the outcome of the motion that went to council, as you said a while ago now, and that they've endorsed that this be put together. I think it's relevant that in one of the recommendations you're putting forward is that we also send this also to the Economic Place Scrutiny Committee for them to monitor the action plan of this particularly. I mean, the key points are obviously that we want to, in everything we do as a council, whether it's through our services on the front line, whether it's through our planning services, whether it's through how we engage with residents on all sorts of issues, that we do have at the core that sustainable agenda and sustainability agenda, and that commitment to by 2030 to have eliminated the carbon emissions, or at least mitigated them in other ways. And that brings me to one of the things that's key to this for me is the carbon capture agenda and possibility of using some of our urban green spaces, particularly as carbon capture areas, which again through planting of orchards, etc., on that land to enable that to work as a carbon capture area and then help us towards that goal of 2030. And in the report, which we can't go through word by word, there's a lot of actions on page 14 of the report going through to page 16, which we intend to do, and some timescales there as well. So this is a living document. It's a serious document on how we want to address some of the concerns we have about the environment and how we can have for our residents a sustainable and a beautiful borough, which we have in many ways, and we want to see that handed over to the next generation. I'd like to thank Officer and Director Dave Adams, who's been working on this with his team, and Trevor and myself, how we've engaged together on this to get us to this position. And it's a strategy that I endorse entirely, and I'm glad to see it come today, as I said right at the beginning. I'll open it up to views from Cabinet members now. Helena first, and then Steve.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I thoroughly welcome this. I think any aspiration, any strategy, any council that sets out to think about reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, as you've already said, to sort of offset our carbon emissions, to be increasing our recycling and so on. I think it's something that we should all be getting behind, both on a personal and a wider level as well. So I thoroughly welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you, Helena. And of course, we've with our new recycling system, we've taken a leap in that direction, as Trevor said earlier, about the rising levels of recyclable material we're collecting, and the reduction in the stuff that has to go to the incinerator to be burned is there for all to see. And of course, the efficient way we're now delivering the service, as well as less vehicles movements on the road than there was under the old filtering system. So I think that's an advantage that we show we can deliver, some environmental sustainability and reductions in carbon by the actions that we take. I'm going to bring Paul in now, who's got his hand up.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I agree with this. I think it's fantastic that we're looking at this in detail. You mentioned, Leader, about running through planning. I think this is an opportunity for us to have a look at this in greater detail, and I've started some initial discussions with our planning officers in terms of how we could embed this perhaps a little bit more into the possibility of if we go our own way in a standalone local plan, that may help us to inform our planning decisions in terms of how we expect developers to behave in the future. I mean, obviously, sustainable strategies such as this are expensive initially. When everybody gets on board, they become more viable, more cheaper to run out. And unless we take that stance and take that lead as an authority, having a golden thread that goes through all aspects of our service delivery, then it's up to us to lead on that, and to make people obviously not comply, but to get on board with it, because it's for the greater good. It's for the it's a national thing, which extends far beyond national. It's the world, but we can actually influence what we're doing at a local level in terms of our sustainability agenda. And I welcome this report. It goes a long way for at least opening those discussions and getting the boat out of the port, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. I was going then. Sorry, Paul. Steve.
Yeah, thank you for that, Peter. No, I endorse this. I think the point I was going to make is it just shows that this council is actually serious about this, the fact that this report's been done and this strategy has been done. And it's not just a sort of a tick box exercise that we'll do that a couple of years ago. It's actually done now. And I absolutely endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to elaborate on Paul's bit, I think that embedding in all of the plans we've got is the next step. And we talk about, if we do our own borough local plan, it can be a green, sustainable plan. We've got all of our various council plans and documents and strategies going forward. It will be a centre part of each of those, as well as we go forward as well, to ensure we have that sustainable environment for the borough going forward, and we reduce those carbon emissions to the zero we want for borough activities, council activities by 2030. So the recommendations are before us. Trevor, anything to add? No? Okay, so we agree those recommendations, all agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 9 now is the Borough Museum redevelopment project. I'll bring in Jill Waring, the portfolio holder for this. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, the Brampton Museum redevelopment project. This report is to seek Cabinet approval to award the contract to build a new extension and carry out improvements to the museum, following which work will commence in January. Money has been provided from various sources. We've had some from the National Heritage Lotteries Fund, the Landfill Communities Fund, Newcastle under Lyme Civic Society, the Arts Council, and the Friends of Brampton Museum. And I think that just shows how much people value the museum. The procurement process has been carried out, and Sandycroft Building Construction Limited are the most competitively priced and have scored highest on assessment. It's a wonderful project to make our very much loved building and museum, which is in a beautiful location in Newcastle, even better. And it will build on and enhance the work that the work we already do there. You can see from page 2 of the report a short list of what we can expect to see happening with the new and extended museum. And this includes a dedicated temporary exhibition space that will enable officers to plan and deliver exhibitions more easily. We can have a new member of staff for 3 years, and that will help deliver new activity plans. It'll widen the range of visitors to the museum, extend the archiving area, create a research area, increase the training of new beloved volunteers, and they help catalogue and digitise the collections, and it will improve the current collection. So it's just all wonderful. I mean, the list just goes on. In addition to that, we've got the newly installed Wi-Fi going on at the moment. So we're going to be able to do much more with virtual visits. I think it's a really exciting project. You know, I believe the museum is the jewel in the crown of Newcastle, and this is going to make it shine more brightly, hopefully. It's wonderful news. It's been a horrible 9 months, but the work has continued throughout to make this happen. And I would like to thank all those involved. And I'd like to just hand it back to you now, Leader, for comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Endorse everything you've said, and I'm really a fan of the museum, as you say, the jewel in the crown of the borough's assets in one of the premier parks in the borough. I think this is great, and I thank you for your work on this, Jill, since you've been the portfolio holder, and Mark Holland previously on bringing this project forward, along with the officers from the museum who are dedicated officers really to what they do there, and they've really got an enthusiasm for it. I know that from being up there in the past. And then, of course, the Friends group of volunteers who've put hours and hours into the museum, and also funding towards this. And of course the Civic Society, when it wound up, ensured that, you know, some of its bank balance went into this as well to ensure the, you know, the not only the future of the museum, but also the enhancement of all those services and exhibits that we can do in there. And I think this is just a great move forward for the borough, and that we've managed to get this done during this period as well, and over the next few months, really, to when it will be done and completed, hopefully, you know, be back to normal in more way. And of course, all the school visits will be able to go there. They'll have a more of an enhanced experience. I think one of my first memories of school in the early junior school, probably even in the infant school, was going along to the museum for a day visit, and that stuck with me for forever, ever and ever, and I still think about it now. So it's and a lot of those exhibits are all there, and the shop up the streets scene upstairs is still there, and the old Roman pipe found in a Holditch, and all of that from the potential Roman villa that is in Holditch, etc., is all in there. And there's plenty more in there as well, which doesn't get to see the light of day. Hopefully with this extra space, some of that will get out and be seen by people. And I think that, as you say about the Wi-Fi, is a great development as well, and we can have those those interactive tours and everything, and those what are they called? QK thing, QR, the QR boards, so you can get more information about each of the exhibits and the guided tours and everything. So it just takes our museum to a next level. This will really as an even better asset for the borough. So I'm really pleased to for Jill that you bring these forward and to endorse what you've said, Steve.
Yeah, I think the museum's tremendous, really, and I think it's this investment, I think, will take it up to another level. But I mean, this charter for this town is 850 years. But you think of the Romans at Chesterton, you think of the Vikings around here. You know, it goes back a lot longer than that. There's a lot of history in Newcastle, and I mean, the gentleman sitting to my left now, Councillor Tagg, 2 G's on the end of a name. That means there's a Viking. it's, you know, there's so much history in Newcastle, and this gives us an opportunity to promote it further. And anybody who's never been to the museum, I absolutely recommend you going. Thank you.
Trevor.
Just like to say, Leader, I was thinking about David Beckett. He was a great friend of the museum, and he'd be so thrilled if he could see what's happening today. Thank you.
We agree with that. He was obviously in right up to the end. He was obviously passed away earlier in the year. Was a friend of the museum, and I know when he was on the cabinet, he was a big sort of advocate of the museum and pushing that forward, along with all the other things that he also stuck up for the borough. Yes, you're quite right. Bringing anybody on. Cabinet members online who want to come in. I'm not seeing anybody indicating, but no, my boat is parked outside, and yes, thanks for that. But I think we've got a long history in the borough, and it's all captured within the museum, and this facility will enhance it massively. So recommendations before us moved by Jill. Do we all agree? Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Moving back to the front is our last item of business for a decision is the proposed residents funeral survey. So long awaited, this has come into cabinet, hasn't it, for you, Trevor? So I'll hand this over to you to introduce it, Trevor.
Thank you, Leader. All deaths, even when expected, still create shock and can put those left behind in a state of vulnerability. And concern has been raised in recent times about the rising cost of funerals and the associated hardship this can cause families at a very difficult time. A funeral is the classic distress purchase made when a family is at its most vulnerable. We wish to establish a residents' funeral service, including a direct cremation option. We aim to partner with a local funeral director to provide a dignified end-to-end funeral service at a fixed cost. The direct cremation option, also at a fixed cost, would involve the deceased being taken directly to our crematorium and being cremated without a traditional funeral service or the family being present, and the ashes then being returned to the family. It is intended that the end-to-end funeral offer is for the residents of Newcastle only, and the direct cremation option would be open to all. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Trevor. Any comments from cabinet members on this? Steve.
Thank you. When you get married, you can go to a church. You can spend £10,000. You can spend £20,000. You can spend whatever you like when you get married, or you go next door to the registry office and spend whatever a license costs. You have that choice. My mother-in-law died 2 years and 4 days ago today, and her funeral cost us £5,000, and £5,000 appears to me to be the going rate for a funeral. This report, I think, gives people the choice of how they want to be sent off, and I think that choice is vital. One of a good friend of mine, when he dies, he wants to even more basic. He doesn't want a coffin at all. He just wants to go in a shroud, cremated, give the ashes back, and job done. That's what he wants. And he already got an option now, and I think this gives people that option. And when somebody dies, you're in such a vulnerable position that you just take what you get, basically, and it's £5,000, and that is the going rate. It seems to be, and I think this is such a worthwhile, needed project. And for residents who don't know, Trevor used to be an undertaker, which is why he knows a bit about this sort of thing. And I absolutely totally endorse it, Trevor. And I thank you for your work in the offices for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Jill.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Trevor, for this report. I think it's an absolutely brilliant idea. I think it'll give people a more affordable option and create more price competition with the undertaking sector. Not enough people talk about funerals or plan for funerals, and are often very shocked by the cost of a funeral and when they realise what it's going to be. And I just think we should be helping to reduce those costs wherever possible. So I'm really pleased with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Paul.
Well done, Trevor, and the team for bringing this report. 100% endorse this. I know we've had conversations about this from time to time about the council, but importantly, this deals with a subject that Councillor Waring alluded to a few moments ago, that nobody likes to have and the actual market in terms of cremations and burials, etc., is very much a closed one, you know, people for the wrong reasons are not in the best place to make decisions sometimes when they've had a recent bereavement. And these are the conversations that are crucial. They're hit often with a massive bill and feel very guilty if they don't go along with it or buck the trend. This actual proposal and report gives an alternative. It gives a choice for the residents of Newcastle to have. They don't have to go along with the suggested funeral arrangements. They have an option to go with a different version with the others that are out there. But this was very important, and I think having that choice empowers residents further at a time when they're most needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and other cabinet members. Completely endorse everything that's been said, and echo the thanks to Trevor who's been driving this since we are in a situation now where this sort of thing is higher up on the agenda. But Trevor was pushing for this, you know, many months before that. Has been working on these proposals. So really pleased that we've brought them to cabinet today, and that we can endorse them. So we just call for that from all cabinet members that we endorse this report. Thank you. Thank you.
Agreed.
If we move then to the forward plan, which is published on, strangely, on page 1117 because of the air quality document, which, Trevor, you didn't hold up, did you? But it is next to Trevor. It's a massive document on the air quality stuff, but it means that our forward plan is on page 1117. But as we do, we go through this page by page to look at some of the business that's coming up. Again, a busy period coming forward with budget setting, but we've obviously got page 1119. Any comments? And then over the page, won't read out the page number, and then onto the final page there of the schedule of work that's coming to the cabinet as we get into 2021. I think that should be. I think there's an error there. It says 2020 February, so we just need to update that to 2021 as we're almost into that year now. But can we agree the forward plan? Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you, Jill. And then over the page, any urgent business, I don't have any. Disclosures of event information, we don't have any items that we need to exclude the public for. I've had no requests for public participation or other councillors to become involved in cabinet today. So that concludes the meeting. Thank everybody for their attendance, and also say this is the last cabinet before the Christmas period. Be a different Christmas period this year, but I think a lot of people are trying to make it as normal as possible for people. Hope everybody enjoys Christmas, and obviously we'll be back on January the 15th with a heavy agenda again as we start to take the borough forward and recover further from COVID and get back on track with some of the plans we've got in our forward plan, which we've seen today. We've been pushing them along the track, and the train is motoring as we try to improve the borough even better than it is now for our residents. But on that, I think we'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Leader.